Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. From Los Angeles, I'm Tom Lamog, an instructor with the Cyber Chapter for Guitars for Vets and Cav Arts, the Challenge America Veteran Arts Community. Welcome to this evening's G4V Learning Center live event with my guest, New York City-based composer, veteran bassist, and Guitars for Vets instructor, Charley Sabatino. Charley, hey, Charley, how's it going?
Okay, it's great.
Hey man, thanks for joining us. We are going to go ahead and get into this conversation with you momentarily, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about who you are. Charley is an educator with more than 40 years experience. He plays both upright and electric bass, encompassing a wide range of styles, and performs throughout the New York metro area. Charley currently teaches bass theory and improvisation, both in person and remotely, to students of all levels and ages. Charley has an association with Yamaha and is endorsed by Lackland Basses, SAT Strings, Lathan Bassware, Phil Jones Bass Amplifiers, Collar Bridges, and Tsunami Cables. Charley has been profiled in Bass Player Magazine in July 2014, the podcast Contra Bass Conversations, and the Bass Shed. His current projects include Charley Sabatino and Looking Forward, which spotlights him as an arranger, a composer, a band leader, and a performer. And he also gives highly acclaimed clinics on the fundamentals of electric and stand-up bass, as well as improvisation for all instruments. Charley, welcome, my friend. It's good to see you.
You make a good hype man.
That's what I'm here for, dude. But wait until we get to your story, because I know after meeting you in NAMM and then having all the conversations, and before I go any further, let's talk a little bit about the NAMM show in Anaheim. It was great to meet you in person. I was just wondering, did you have a chance to walk the floor? Did you have a chance to check out any of the products?
It's funny because I'm not a real super gear guy. The gear that I have is the gear I like. I don't have a lot of gear. I've been going to the NAMM show, COVID notwithstanding, since 2017. I've played 3 instruments. It's just not my thing. I'm not a super gear guy. And I pretty much stay in with Yamaha. I'll walk the floor a little bit, but I pretty much stay up with Yamaha because Yamaha is the one that brings me out there. And I believe in what I'm there for is the Yamaha silent bass, which is an electric upright. So that's what I spend most of my time doing, because I'm there to demonstrate that.
Yeah. And you know what? I had a chance to see you actually standing there with the different Yamaha gear as well. I love Yamaha products. So, hey, anyways, before we get started, it's probably a good thing to give you the formal introduction, maybe ask you a few questions as to really what your background is, who you are, and why, what really makes you, qualified to actually speak on the topic of practice itself. I know you've shared all of that with me. I can't wait for you to go ahead and share that with everyone.
I have a master's degree in music. I've been teaching nearly 40 years. I've taught on 6 continents remotely. And I've had the pleasure and the honor to have some amazing teachers who taught me what to practice and how to practice, in bass related stuff and music related stuff. And I find that I spend as much time teaching students how to practice as much as what. I find that there are some misconceptions. Like I'll get like, well, I can't put in 4 hours a day. Well, wait a minute, we have lives. That's not what I'm asking you to do, And a lot of it is finding out what you can put in, but planning it and making it that when you sit down to practice, you know what you're going to do.
Man.
There's no like, it's like, oh, I got this to do today. And by doing that, you will progress much more quickly because it's planned, it's set, you do it, you get out.
Exactly. I mean, it's like a journey, isn't it? It's starting from point A and then getting to point B, and then really finding a way to get there, but not in a way that is unorganized. And I know we're going to be talking about a lot. Now, there are two things that I want to mention here before we get started. One is I know that today we have a number of our instructors as well as some students who may have some questions. So if you do have questions, Paul Lilley will be joining us later to pose those questions to Charley. Just go ahead and put them in the chat. And well, Charley, for you, my first question to you is, going way back, do you have any early memories of being influenced by music? And if so, what were they?
Well, I always liked music. Music was always something I went to as a kid, of course. But the two things that hit me in the journey, and the first one is Angus McGeckran. Angus McGeckran was a classmate. He was a bass player. Early high school, he came to my house and said, "You got to listen to this." And he put Quadrophenia on my turntable, and I went, "That's what I want to do." That was my first. Man. That was my first, and then and it went into Kiss, and it went into Rush, and it went into Yes, and all that. Yeah. But then Harold Cody was another high school classmate. We're on the bus, and he says, "You got to listen to this album. It's really weird. It's like there's no vocals. And I took it home. It was Jeff Beck's Wired. And that took me in a totally different direction. And from there, went into fusion, and then it went into jazz, which is my education. So for me, a lot of it were friends that brought me into places, and then some instructors. I had some amazing instructors. One was actually a guitar player. He was older when I studied with him, but he played with all major guys, and he taught me a lot of the stuff about practice that I'm mentioning here. And another one was a bass player, and he and the other one both taught me the concept that it's a lifelong journey. Whether you're a bedroom player or want to play full time, art makes your life better, and it goes on till you stop. So, and these are guys that were in their 80s that had sterling careers that still practiced every day, hungry.
You got a lot of exposure there, from rock, to jazz, to bass, to so many different things.
The thing is that I didn't know people. I'll talk to people who know me for, say, just a couple of years, and that they think that I came out of the womb listening to Miles, and it's like, no, man, I was a metalhead like every other kid, and rock and all that kind of stuff. And I listen to a lot of different forms of music, especially being a teacher. I hear a lot of different forms of music. And, I went to, I was just kidding with my daughter. I took her to her first, Jonas Brothers concert, I mean, it's, it's all, and they had a real band, which was cool. It's all, to me, it's all music. It's all creative, whether I like it or not, doesn't make it not that.
So, and that's very true. I know that in my upbringing, at first, I was pretty much locked into just 70s pop, 60s and 70s pop. And then as I actually got into radio as a disc jockey, and one of the requirements was, before you lock yourself into a musical format, you better take a listen to, really what's out there, what's out there, because there's so much great music, so many different genres and styles. Now, my question to you is this, is that after being hit with a diversity of music types, genres and such, can you recall the defining moment that said, I want to do this, and this is what I'm going to do, until I'm sick of it?
That album Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
That was it. That was when I said, that's what I want to do.
What a fine double album that was.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's the one. That was the thing that just made me go, yeah, that's it. And bass has always been what I wanted. I've always wanted to do. I mean, I went through school, and I'm a lousy piano player because it's like it never interests me. I mean, I write on the piano a lot. and I'll use it for teaching. But it's just like I had no interest. All I had an interest was those two,
Man.
and that's all I
Okay.
ever had an interest in.
Well, cool. I got one more question for you, and then we're going to get right into the topic. And that is, what got you interested in becoming a volunteer instructor for Guitars for Vets?
Oh, you guys are heroes, plain and simple. And it's what I can do. If I was a butcher, I'd give you all ribeyes. You know what I mean? It's what I can. It's what I can do. It's what I have. You know,
Yeah.
and that's plain and simple. Like I said, you know, if I it's what I have that I can give to you guys. My dad was a veteran, right? I was not, and I have nothing but utter respect and awe of all of you. That's
So
it.
Charlie, it's not the pay.
The chicks.
It's the chicks. That was clear.
No, it is. It's what I'm a firm believer in giving back. You know, I've been lucky that I've been successful in what I do, and between my wife and I, we've been, you know, we've always lived within our means, and we've been, you know, we can do what we can do, so we try to give back to charities. We do a lot helping animals. We're big animal cause people. And when I found out about this, I'm like, this is something I can do. It's something I can give. You know, because it's what I know.
That's great.
I can't. There's other things I can't do. This I can do.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here. G4V instructor, you know, accomplished professional bass player, instructor. It's time we get moving then. Let's get right into the topic. All right. Now, the obvious question, this is the question that I asked you back at the NAMM show. It's kind of, hey, Guitars for Vets, you're a bass player. You know, there's similarities, of course, obviously, in the way of approaching practice. But what should people know, you know, about practice, whether it be as a professional bass player or someone who's just starting off with guitar?
So practice, you know, one of the things one of the few things that makes me kind of angry as a instructor is that sometimes I get well, I'm not in music school, I don't need that. So well, hang on. We're not talking about level. We're not talking about proficiency. We're just talking about a method of moving from here to here. That's it. So the whole idea is to know how, and I have a board I'm going to go in a minute, but it's how long do you have to put into it? I mean, we could be talking about fitness. We could be talking about gardening. We could be talking about painting the living room. Okay. It's all the same stuff, you know. How much time have I got? What are my goals? What do I need to meet those goals? And how do I make a plan to meet those goals? That's really it. But it's doing that actively, day to day. You know, writing out, you know, I'm writing out a planned practice, even if it's, you know, like I said, even if your goal is, I just want to be able to play in the backyard with my friends, that's fine. But there are skills needed to be able to do that.
Is that the first that you mentioned, goals here? And, you know, of course, that comes to mind in our day to day for those of us who have to put together a to-do list. There's something that maybe you want to complete. But are goals really that important when it comes to practice?
I 100% agree. I'm big on that, because without goals, you're just noodling. I mean, I've paid for this house with players who come to me like, well, I'm 45 years old. I've been playing since I was 15, and I play with my friends, and I'm playing the same 6 things. You know, because without a plan, you just, you know, you play the same music, or if you're with your friends, you play the same music and you go nowhere. The whole idea is sometimes the only way to get through a door is to kick it. So you got to say, I got to this is what do I need to be able to do that? You know, one of the things that I teach, and I don't know if you're not bass players, but you might know, is the slap technique. Right? That's a very popular technique. A lot of guys come to me and they're like, they know all these riffs, but they don't know what they're doing. So the whole idea is to break that technique down to all the different pieces, quantify them, learn them, and then bring them together. So in that case, the goal oriented is to be able to do what I just did. Okay, but you need all the different skills. There's this, there's hammer-ons, pull-offs, all these different things, and you take them one at a time, and then it all comes together. I've been teaching this since 1983, and I've had one student who couldn't do it, and he was a semi-professional boxer. He had 12-inch scars on both wrists, and he physically couldn't do it. But I've never failed on one of them. And it's because by taking it piece by piece, anybody can do it.
So let's talk about that for a minute here, because there are
I call it
people
divide
who,
and conquer.
yeah. So let's do that right now. Maybe you can give us an example of what a goal, like demonstrating what it is you just showed us. What might one or two of those goals be?
Well, the goals can range anywhere. I mean, the thing I tell students all the time is like, okay, you're gonna die in 15 minutes. What is your ultimate goal? What is the goal you want to reach musically just before you're gone? All right, it could be a lofty goal. It could be not a lofty goal. Say, okay, then let's back up. So say your loftiest goal is I want to be able to be in a cover band that works 4 times a month and makes enough money for it to be worth my while. That's not a super lofty goal, but it's like, okay, what do I need to do with that? Well, you have to be able to learn tunes. Okay, you have to learn tunes. That's a skill. Well, that's ear training. That's theory, so you know what you're doing, right? Maybe reading so you can chart them out. Okay, working on time so you can follow the drummer. All of these things. They say, okay, those are all the things I need to know. How do I do them? And of course, with an instructor or any other research, you can find ways to do that. So you're backtracking from all the things you need down to like, okay, I need to work on my time. How do I do that? Well, there's a book on rhythm. I'll do that every day. Okay, fine. I need to work on my ear training. There are ear training methods that various people do. I need to be able to read or be able to chart stuff out. Okay, there are books on reading. You can do 5 minutes a day. And it just builds itself out.
That's a lot of stuff, obviously. What are your thoughts on how you keep track of that stuff? I mean, should they write it down, or is this something they should memorize? Or
some people have used Excel files. Back in the day before computers, I used to have one of those, blotter calendars, and I would write it there. There are actual books you can get on Amazon, and what students have showed me that are practice journals. They're blank, and every day has, what am I doing? What do I do tomorrow? All of the above. I've had students just write me out a schedule for next week. What are you doing next week? Tell me, if you're practicing half an hour, what are you doing in those 30 minutes? And then, because the whole idea is like, do you do the same thing every day? Do you do like 3 things and then 3 more things? You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. There's different ways of thinking about it. But what happens is that you have to. It's an ongoing thing, because as you get better at some things and worse at others, you change it. It's like, well, I did my reading. I'm pretty good at that. I need to spend less time, but I'm having a lot of trouble with another area. And it just goes day to day. I've been doing this for, since I started playing. I mean, I'm a lunatic, all right, if you don't already know. And I plan my practice 6 months to a year in advance. I know what I'm going to be doing through the next 6 to 12 months.
Some of the other instructors, it's just like a composition book.
Yep,
it's just basically it's you fill it out with your to-do list, and then you start scratching things out as you accomplish them, and there's a real sense of accomplishment. And over time, maybe you move everything over to your iPhone, because there's that feature to track it there. But
yeah, whatever people feel comfortable in different ways. How you schedule that, written or digital, is totally up to you.
All right.
I'll just throw in there that the cyber resource page that we made for all of you instructors, the second page, which is all the PDF files, there's a folder called blank forms, and one of them is it's a little bit of a format, but it's about the goals for practice sessions. So if your student's a paper person, or you want something tangible that you can print out, that's available for you. Charlie, the way I kind of think about what you're saying, with our program, if we have a brand new guitar player, and if we only have 10 hours with them, kind of the long-term goal, the way we set this program up, is you're going to learn a song. And the short-term goal becomes, we're going to take you through that long-term goal through a series of short-term goals that consist of fretting, making chords and sounding them out, and then transitioning those chords. And that's kind of how I think about like the long-term and short-term aspect of it.
Okay. Yeah. Again, it depends on, you know, when I say ultimate goals, sometimes those ultimate goals may not be as ultimate as you'd like them to be, depending on like there's a 10-hour limit in the instruction. I've had students be like, well, my ultimate goal is that, you know, I need to pass the audition for college. Well, you know, so the ultimate goal is more finite. Or listen, Joey just called me and they want me in his band and I got to learn these 6 tunes. Okay, come on, there's their ultimate. You know, I tell all my students, if somebody calls and says, do you know these tunes? The answer is yes, whether you know them or not, because I will help you. That's part of my, you know, part of my job is, you know, is not to teach you the stuff, but it's to get you to play, you know. So you know, I use ultimate goal because for students of mine that, you know, I've had some students that studied me for 10 years, you know, so it's like the goals just get longer and longer and longer and longer, you know.
Those are the students with the long-term goal that they want to be like Charley.
No, in fact, that's the one thing I will never do. I will never, one of the hardest things to do as an instructor is to keep yourself out of it, especially when I teach improvisation or soloing, because there's going to come a point where I have to tell them what you do is none of my business. You know, there's a point where I have to, because it's not to sound like me. You're supposed to, you know, Clark Terry, who you may or may not have heard of, was a trumpet player. One of my teachers played with him, and he said he talks about the 3 levels of musicianship: imitation, assimilation, and innovation. He said most people imitate, the good ones assimilate, the masters innovate. So the whole idea is that you may like XYZ, but you're not supposed to play like him or her. I think Victor Wooten said it the best. You can use my wood and use my nails, but don't build my house and live in it.
Sweet.
So it's that kind of, you know, so it's not that I try to make them so they sound like themselves. And the one I tell everybody, I have a student now, he studied with me on and off for the past 5 or 8 years. He's a mainstay in the downtown metal scene. I mean, like the dark, deep, hard metal scene. I had him improvising over jazz tunes. His style is naturally going to be more aggressive than mine. I would never change that. You know, he was doing everything right. He was following the chord, you know, following the harmony, following the melody, but he was naturally more aggressive than I was because of his background. I would never, that would be a crime to change that.
You know, it comes up every now and then in some of the live sessions. Right now we're running through preparing students for their first jam. And the questions have come up where it's like, do I need to play exactly like you, Tom? Do I strum exactly, note for note, play exactly what you're doing? And I would like to get your thoughts on that.
It depends on what you're doing. If you were in a tribute band, I would say absolutely, because that's like going to see Shakespeare in the park. Nobody cares what your ad lib on The Merchant of Venice, right? If you're playing in a cover band, or we call in the East Coast wedding bands or corporate bands, pretty much close enough is okay, unless it's a real obvious part. It depends. It depends on your venue, you know.
What about for like beginners, like the ones who are just now getting started or have been playing with Guitars for Vets, graduated? And
I would say close is fine, you know, unless it's a part that you really want to master because you like it. Then it's, you know, then that's different.
And then of course, if you write your own material,
right,
you get to create the rules, right?
We absolutely. I'm not a nice band leader.
All right. Hey, listen. So maybe you have seen what Paul has posted. He shared Charley's agenda for the discussion. So if you'd like to follow along, make sure to get it from the Guitars for Vets Learning Center. It is posted on the event. Okay, so listen, let's get back to the topic. The topic this time is there are a number of musical areas, just as you explained here, and strumming chords, music charts, learning how to read them, learning how to solo. The list goes on and on and on, as you've shared with us. And there have been some people who have said this is just too much. They're looking at the mountain, and it's an incredible climb, and they're just not wanting to do this, and they kind of give up. What do you usually tell students who start to get that feeling of being overwhelmed by all of these different musical areas?
Calm the beep down.
Oh, good. My buzzer works.
There's that old saying, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time, right? Understand that this is a lifelong process, whether it's fun or whether it's for a living, that all the things you have to master, everybody's trying to master. The thing that one of my teachers used to say is, we're all on the same road in a different place. What you find out is even the masters have areas that they are clueless. You can find, oh yeah, I mean, I judged a solo bass competition for Phil Jones in the fall. And I got a ride home from Chris Jeezy. Chris Jeezy used to be the senior editor of Bass Player magazine. He actually lives down the block from me. I had no idea. He told me, now I don't know if you know these names. If you don't, I apologize. But there was a tour in the 90s of Stanley Clarke, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten, 3 very well-known bass players. Victor told him, this is in the 90s, that he was lost because Stanley and Marcus would go to the piano talking harmony, and he'd be like, no idea what they were talking about. And that's where he started to learn theory, and how we started to work on things like Wooten in the Woods and stuff like that. He was clueless. That does it mean he's not good? No, it means he's a human being like the rest of us. Even the gods have weaknesses. So we're all in the same boat.
Hey, do you remember that story you told me at NAMM about how you got invited to sit in, and you described exactly what you're talking about that happened to you as well.
Right, so I became a Yamaha performance artist in 2017. And in 2019, they brought out the latest of the silent basses, which is an electric upright. You can see it on my website. And they said, we're going to do a bass day. I'm like, yay. And they said, we're going to do some work. I said, okay, whatever. So they brought me out to Calabasas, which is where I'm sorry. No, not Calabasas. Where is it again? I'm looking. Buena Park, excuse me. Buena Park. And I show up, and there's a 40-person video and audio crew. There's Russ Ferrante, who is the founding member of the Yellow Jackets, on piano, a guitar player who Grammy-winning drummer. I forget their names off the top of my head, and a bunch of bass players: Nathan East, Kenny Davis, Chris Mendoki, Ben Widner, Jim Widner, and me. And all of these guys were monsters, and me. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Because I mean, I know my abilities, but I don't have any of the notoriety these players have. And it was just like, and I got in, and in my opinion, I performed very well. And I think I did well enough because they talked to me different when I came off stage. So apparently I was able to do something. So it means that everybody's a human being. Nathan was a great guy, but he's a human being.
And there's this, this vision, at least that I hear about, and myself included, is that, we have an entire life to go ahead and learn how to play, literally. You start off at the beginning level, and then however long it takes you to get to that next level, that's how long it's going to take you. Yeah. And people are on that path, and where some go faster than others. And, just like you described, it's kind of like, wow, I mean, I can keep up, but there are some people who are much farther along, and maybe some, that maybe you or I are farther along than others. But I mean, really, it becomes quite personal, isn't it? Very, from an individual standpoint, what they're able to learn and the amount of time that they have to learn and allocate towards all of these different things. And there are just a zillion things that are out there about music to learn, right?
It's like anything else. It's a journey, and everybody's journey is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And as a community, we need to support each other. The only time it's a competition, and I say this all the time, the only time it's a competition is when there's money involved. If I'm going against you for an audition for a gig, I'm going to, humanely, but I mean, it's going to be a full out competition because there's money involved, and it's how I feed my family. Other than that, we support each other, and it's got to be a supportive thing.
Very much so, especially in this community, veterans.
Yeah, well, yeah,
we're all helping each other
especially in
along.
the community of the veterans, because you guys are heroes.
Okay, listen. So now we've talked about a way to address the anxieties of learning. The next thing, is practicing, and just really be thinking about what it takes to get into the practice. Doing the goals. All right, making sure to write them down, cross them off. Feel accomplished.
Let me go to the board. I can go talk a couple of things, and I'll send a picture of this to you. And then again, we talked about your goals, long-term and short-term, and the skills. Now, the skills, they've got, in my opinion, they got to be based on concepts, right? Ear training, theory, chords, time, things like that. Now, a couple of other things that I found over the years that I found have been very helpful. Having a workspace. Even if you have a studio apartment, a corner that has the music stand and your chair, mentally gets you into ready to work. And I know it sounds weird, but it works. And alerting co-inhabitants. I have a student. She's a Berkeley grad, great player, but needed to get better. She needed to work on some upright and some stuff she was doing for shows. And she had 2 young children, and they wouldn't let her practice. And I said, did you tell them that when you're there, you're working? She goes, what do you mean? I said, tell them when mommy is sitting down, she's got to do her homework. The next time I saw her, she said, Charlie, I was able to put an hour in. They left me alone. They just didn't know. So sometimes that alone can help you. It's like, hey, when I'm sitting in that corner, give me 15 minutes. Or 20 minutes. I need to work on something. And people will leave you, for the most part, will leave you alone. Reevaluate. This whole idea of practice, I'm going to do this, and this, but you have to reevaluate on the fly because you're going to get better at things and need more time, and you need to alter it sometimes day to day. Alter the plan as needed, and sometimes go back to the top. Okay, am I putting in too much time? Do I have more time than I thought? Do I have less time than I thought? And then go back down again. It makes such a difference. I base everything on music fundamentals and concepts, right? What I call rudiments and challenges. The rudiments are the things like time, like chordal knowledge, like reading, those things we spoke about. Challenges are the things that those things help you with. Being able to learn a song real quickly, being able to follow a guitar player without, or in your case, a bass player or a piano player right on the spot. Things like that, being able to solo over anything. Those are the challenges. And try not to base it on things. Oh, I want to sound like, I want to be able to sound like this person. No, those are, I put no heroes. It's based on music, not on somebody else's music, on general music. This fits whether you're a heavy metal player, a Latin player, a country player, anything I'll say in Western classical music, which is what we all do, or blues music. As we go into Eastern, the Eastern rites, there's more, gets more complicated. Does that help?
There's a lot of great information right there, man.
Well, it's
Yeah, so let's take it. Let's take it. One line at a time, because I do have like how much time now. I mean, we promote short spurts. Pick up your guitar when you can. If we can get our 5 minutes in. That's about the most time. And then there are others who believe that, okay, I don't mind doing a 30 minutes, stretch. I'm comfortable with that. But is there a rule of thumb that comes to,
there is no rule of thumb. I've had students that could put in 2 hours a day. I've had students that have 15 minutes maybe because they have new jobs and new babies or whatever. The whole idea is whatever you put here, whatever this number is, you follow the things here. I've had students with no more than 15 minutes a day that I've helped them plan, and they've moved forward. Not moved as forward as far as somebody put in an hour, but they've moved forward. So it doesn't matter, you know, and it's different for every person. And if it's like when there was 1,000 years ago, I had a day job. I used to get up at 5:30 in the morning and put half an hour in before I went to work. So if you can do, you know, if it's sports, so I'm gonna do it, you know, 10 minutes as soon as I get home from work. I'll do 15 minutes after work and after dinner. That's fine. However it works for you is fine, as long as all of these, you follow these things and you plan it out. It's not, one of the things I put here, where did it go? Because my wife made fun of me. You know, no noodling. You know, noodling is not practice. So it's like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this, and this. And after I'm done with that, then maybe I'll noodle. Because noodling, then what happens is you end up just noodling, and then none of the things get done, and you wonder why you've not gone anywhere.
Well, real good. Let's get to that next line. What are your goals? Now, here's what I know about goals. Okay. You need to be specific about those goals. All right. Now, Charlie, I know you were mentioning a little earlier about, you know, some of the goals that people think about, but maybe, you know, if you're, for the veterans here who have graduated from our program, it's basically, okay, we're going to learn every note on the low E string. We're going to learn every note on the low E string, and I'm going to do that this week. And that's a goal. All right. Yeah. You set it with time. You have a specific goal in mind, a specific objective here. All right. And then maybe for week 2, it's, I'm going to learn everything on the A string, all the notes on the A string, sharps and flats.
Yeah.
All right.
And so the greater goal for that is learning all the notes on the neck. That's the larger goal of those smaller goals. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to talking about, you know, writing down your goals, those are the types of things that you want to write down as a goal, that rather than, okay, in 3 weeks, you know, you're going to do something that's very obscure, that's not very clear. You have to be very clear, because that's going to help you be honest as well, too, which is on that first line, being honest.
Right. So the whole idea is that there's long-term goals and short-term. So the long-term is your ultimate goal. And the reason I put both in is because you want to make sure that the short-term goals bring you to where you want to be. You want to make sure that they're in line.
Hey, Charlie.
And obviously, things like learning the notes on the neck, everybody has that goal, right? That's an obvious one. But there are some goals that might be, you know, if someone never wants to ever solo, why would soloing be in their goals, right?
Hey, Charlie. Charlie, we got a question. What is noodling?
Noodling is just playing the same old stuff that you do all the time, the song that you've known since you were 17, the same solo that you always do. It's just mindless play, what I consider mindless play. Playing
for fun versus playing with intention.
Yeah, but playing for fun is even different. When you're sitting down to practice, you're there to work. That's to me. If you're sitting down to have fun, if you're going to sit down and have fun, that's a totally different thing. But when you're sitting to practice, it's work to do to get to where you want to get to. Thank you. I know some people, like I had one guy berate me on social media. I don't want anything that has to do with work. Okay. I can't fight that. But you know, in order to go farther in anything, I mean, we could put this in you know, culinary arts. We could do it in woodworking. It's the same idea.
So in culinary arts, literally, you could have no noodling.
Oh. Somebody mute him.
Sorry, it's late on the East Coast.
No dad jokes.
Real good. All right. So the next line here, what skills do you need? Now, are we talking about, all right, I need to have a, fresh strings on a guitar, or I got to be in tune. Are these, I mean, there's a skill to that, right? In other words, you've got to make sure that you know how to use a tuner, that you know how to use your guitar. I mean, that may be a very small scale, but maybe on the larger end of the skills would be like, I need to get an instructor or lessons or things.
The skills to me are things like, you know, reading, time, ear training. One of the big ones I use all the time for a bass player or any musician is voice leading. In other words, being able to understand that chords move. So it's how to dovetail what you do from chord to chord. It's not always just, bolted together. There's a movement. I have volumes of books in my bookcases over here that are different observations and theories on voice leading. So voice leading is a big one. All right. It's way beyond the scope for me to talk at. It's just too much. But it's, understand, it's basically how chords move and how the song moves. Okay. So that's a big skill. There's a lot involved in that. We said ear training. With knowing all the notes on the neck is a skill. In case of guitar players, being able to play the chords smoothly, that's a skill.
Keeping time, like to a metronome, playing a drummer.
Chords, but knowing not just the cowboy chords, know all the chords, know what the inversions buy you, what the different substitutions of chords you can do, all those kind of things, especially over dominant chords, all the different things you can do.
Charlie, do you have any exercises on teaching rhythm?
A book. What I use is a book on rhythm and a metronome.
Okay. I know, like when we're working with a brand new guitarist and we get them to where they know chords, they could do some transitions, and we start to focus on their strumming hand.
Right. What I use, because it's part of the whole divide and conquer, I use that book.
That looks like a book that I had. Oh my goodness.
Pictures, I bet.
This book every day for 10 years. Every single day.
From the 80s. Oh wow. That's awesome.
It's the best. Yeah. It's a great book. I cut a really bad album with Gil Brandis, his son, back in the day. Really bad. But it's a great book because with the exception of one section, it's methodic. It starts very simply. It's wonderful.
Oh man.
You got to make the donuts, man.
Pay your dues. You gotta go through that. Everyone's got to make that journey.
The plan, like I said, the plan has to be specific. It's got to be a daily plan, and there's no noodling like this. Like I said.
And everyone get yourself one of those little composition books. I mean, it doesn't have to really be like anything huge, but you definitely need to write.
People are comfortable with composition books. I have some of my youngest students, are more digitally savvy, so they'll do it online, on an Excel file, whatever works, man.
Hey, even a whiteboard works, don't you think?
This whiteboard has seen a lot.
And that plan is, I don't know about you, but some might be just, these are the short-term goals that you're talking about. They get put into the plan itself, and that plan is.
What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing? What are you doing Saturday if you're going to practice on the weekend? What am I doing Monday? What am I, that's I already have that in my head. Like I said, months in advance.
Larger vision. Yeah. It's kind of like, well, you know what? There's a jam that's coming up in 3 months and I'm going to get ready for that. And these are the things I'm going to do.
And that's a goal. And that's a very important goal.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a plan that you're working on right now? Do you have anything that you've written recently, or you can share with us?
Let me switch cameras. I've been working with a couple of. Let me see. Am I coming back? Yes.
There you are.
I've been doing some writing. I'm working with a couple of groups in New York. I've been working with Guillermo Gregorio, who's this Argentinian composer, and I'm doing a trio with him, and I've written a couple of pieces of that. He's in with some of his stuff. I'm working with another guy in Brooklyn, Charlie Waters, and we got some quartet involved with that. I have my own music, which I'm trying to get recorded, but it's very difficult. Unless you have $100,000 with nothing to do, it's not exactly easy.
There is a lot going on in your world. I know. And can we, before we forget, and I feel free to go ahead and throw your questions into the chat. We're coming up on about 12 minutes to the top of the hour. We want to make sure that you're.
Yeah, I want to get some questions. If anyone's got a question, or if you just want to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine too.
No. You're doing great, man. So, the whole idea of having a space to study in, I mean, that's kind of key. God. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a mental thing, you know. Some people let's go into fitness. Some people say, I can't work out at home. I'll never do it. I got to go to the gym because I'm there, right? That's important. If that's what it gets you to do it, that's fine. Like I said, it could just be a corner with a chair and a music stand. But it's you mentally are like, okay, it's work time. Because I've had some people, well, you know, I'll do it when I'm sitting in bed. No, man, you're not gonna get the concentration. You got to be able to have a place. Like I said, even if it's a little corner in a room, that you know that's work time.
And cohabitants. I know you mentioned that as well too, because that's part of the space as well.
That one was interesting because that's what happened with this one student, and she was having all kinds of trouble. She has 2 young children. One has special needs, and they just wouldn't leave her alone. Not meaning so, but they were little. I said, did you just tell them that mommy had, because she had like shows she had to, you know, and she said, did you just tell them when I'm sitting in this chair, mommy needs to do her homework? And it worked like a charm. They said, okay, because they do homework, right? And they left her alone. You know, they told you, unless it's an emergency, God forbid, right? But they left her alone. They did what they had to do, and they let her practice.
Hey, Charlie, I got a question here. From Anonymous, they want to know if you'll play Smoke on Water on the bass. No, just kidding. We do have a question, though.
That's a great bass.
If you have 30 minutes to practice, should you do the whole 30 minutes on one skill, or should it include multiple skills?
It depends on what you need to work on. If I tend to like multiple skills because it prevents boredom, right? But if you have one, like you might say, like, you know what, I'm having a hell of a time in this area. I just can't figure it out. I got to put all of it in tomorrow. I got to get it. I got to figure it out. So you might do that for a day or so or whatever, just so you can get a handle on it and then go back to multiple. That's what I said about reevaluate day to day. You may be stuck on something and be like, man, I can't figure this out. I got to put extra time in. So you put more time in as the days go on and then cut back. That's why it's a living system.
All right, thanks.
Here's a question for you. When you run into a student who's starting to feel defeated, it's kind of like, I have been trying and you know, maybe he's trying too hard, or maybe he needs more instruction. But are there words? What do you typically? How do you try and get them to talk about that a little bit?
I pretty much tell them that I'm in the same place they are. I had a student on Monday who with my remote students, I have them send me video homework. It saves time in the lesson, and he said I couldn't play 2 notes straight. And I said, I get that 3 times a week in my practice. There are some days it's like, have I ever played before? And it's understanding that we all go through it, and you just got to slog through it. You know, if it's really crazy, put the instrument, not a bass, instrument, and maybe walk away for a day, because, you know, sometimes you got to do that. But it's understand that everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. And there are good and bad. I think Paul McCartney said it the best. He said, and I forgot why he said it, but he says, when you break a dam open, you have to let the crud get out before the clear water flows. Sometimes you just gotta slog through the hard stuff and come through. I mean, I'm going through some stuff in my practice right now. I don't know how my bass hasn't landed in that wall. It's just that frustrating. But I know that I just keep working it and it'll come through.
That was during the Yoko Ono period, I think, for the Beatles.
Could be.
Hey,
I can swear, but I just want to say this. I could swear he also said "live and let die." Is that kind of?
He also said "let it be." Hey, Joseph wants you to hold up the rhythm book again.
Oh yeah. I think it's like around $10 on Amazon. Modern Reading Text in 4/4 by Louis Belson and Gil Brynas. It's a drum book. Just if you buy it in a local music store, it's technically a drum book, but because it's in drum notation, it's just one note. So it doesn't matter what you're playing. You can play any note. It doesn't matter.
Interesting. I never thought about doing that. What made you think about that? Making that correlation?
Instructor. I went to an instructor when I was already playing professionally, and he's like, "I'm going to do time with you." I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, kicked my ass.
Hey, we got another question from Mr. Moya.
Mr. Moya.
I normally have a set practice routine per day. I already know the concept pretty good. Should I still practice it or add more?
Every concept can move forward. So whatever concept it is, there's always I would say there's rarely, if any, concept that ends. So whatever concept it is, there's got to be a next step. I don't know what specifically it is, but there's always a next step. Whenever I work with students, I always have progressions. You know, sometimes they're large, sometimes they're shorter, but there's always movement forward. I hope that helped.
And Joel wanted to say that he created a space where he could sing and play, and his wife hasn't thrown him out yet, so he must be doing something right.
Hey, my sight singing teacher's in therapy for me, so I admire anybody who can do that.
What are your thoughts, Charlie, on qualities of a good instructor?
Well, there's a couple of things, because I've had as many good instructors as bad instructors. I think I may have told one of you, I had an instructor when I was younger who was a celebrity player, was so degrading. I put my instrument down for a year. And I think you've figured out by now that I'm pretty much a lunatic when it comes to music. For a guy to do that to me, he was pretty rough. So there's a couple of things. It's finding an instructor that has a vision, I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach you this, and this. Doesn't take somebody who's, say, an intermediate player and goes back to square one just to get lessons out of you. Yes, when I get a student that already plays, I do go back a couple of steps just to fill in a couple of holes. But you're not going to take a guitar player that's been playing a year and say, here's an E note, right? You want to find somebody that understands, right? Gives you a plan about what they're going to give you. Someone who's patient. I've had more than one student come to me like, I got stuck at work and I didn't get much to practice. I'm like, okay, fine, we'll go over. He goes, well, you're not berating me. How come you're not yelling at me? I said, because I don't yell at my children. Why am I going to yell at you? It's people that understand that there's life involved. Now, if I have a student that has an audition for school or something like that, I'm a little more of a hard ass about it because there's a date. But someone who's patient with you. I tell students all the time, I'll explain it 100 times if I need to, provided you're putting in the work. Someone that jives with you personality wise, we could be talking about anything, right? A doctor, right? Always, this doctor's really got tons of, is the best doctor in the area, but I think he's a jerk. Well, you're not going to go to him or her, right? So it's that kind of stuff. Someone that doesn't make you sound like them, someone that doesn't make you sound like Eddie Van Halen or Garrett Clapton or whatever, may show you some of the things that they do, but doesn't try to make you sound like them. And that's, to me, I've had friends that study with Jaco Pastorius that sound just like Jaco Pastorius, and it doesn't make any sense because why do you want to do that? You may understand what he does, know what he does, tear apart what he does, but it's that assimilation one that I talked about. Someone that's professional. I mean, when someone studies with me, I give them a whole sheet of paper with what I expect of them, what my cancellation policy is, how you pay me, what the books are. No questions. That if you're going to study with me, there's no question what I'm doing. Although people always seem to forget to read it. But things like that. So those are the things I would look for.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, I got a couple more questions, then we're going to hit the top of the hour and go ahead and end the session. Oftentimes there are students who are shooting for the moon and they don't have necessarily the technical expertise, the techniques, the real foundation that's needed to shoot for the moon. When that happens, how do you approach the student in level setting expectations?
Tell them that I don't not had many of that, luckily. Usually when they come to me, they already realize that they need to, you know, if people know who I am, they know how they know what I'm doing, they know what I do, right? But it patience. One of the things, I don't know if I can do this. Let's see. It's right there. It's desire, humility, drive, determination, patience, motivation, gratitude, all covered with confidence. Okay, the two that I talk about are patience and gratitude. Being patient, understand that it takes time, but being gratitude for where you are. So these are the things I push. My teacher Billy hit me with this day in and day out when I studied with him, and I push it with all of my students as well. So shooting for the moon, you have to have the patience. I mean, you know, they talk about, you know, the overnight sensation. Usually it's the 20-year overnight sensation, right? It's, you know, sometimes you just got to be in the trenches. I know you want to be able to solo like XYZ, but you know, there's a lot of work involved, because if not, you're going to hit a wall.
Real true. Final question. What musical advice that you received early on in your musical journey do you still follow today?
What musical? That's a hard one. Feel like I'm in the Miss America pageant.
And world peace is still acceptable.
And world peace. Keep an open mind. You know, listen to everything, accept everything. You can get something from anything, and always look to improve. Really is the one. Like I said, I had teachers with sterling careers that were in their 80s that still worked every day at it, still composed, still practiced. You know, always had stuff to look forward to.
All right.
I think when I was interviewed a bass player, they asked me that same thing, and I said to them, if I can remember the words, if I could keep learning, composing, exploring until 45 minutes after they bury me.
All right, man. Well, listen.
45 minutes after they bury you is when you start decomposing.
Oh my God.
But
that's strike two, dude. That's strike two.
One more.
Oh, we've got one more. I'm going to give you one more chance, but before we do that, you know, we're gonna go ahead. We have just a little bit of time left. If you have any last questions, go ahead and throw that in there. I want to go ahead and at least, you know, share what we do at Guitars for Vets for those who are not with Guitars for Vets through the graduation program or the Cav Arts. But Guitars for Vets is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports U.S. military veterans struggling with the challenges of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, by providing them with free guitars and both one-on-one and group lessons. Today, Guitars for Vets and its nearly 800 volunteers have gifted more than 6,000 new guitars, 60,000 music lessons to those who have endured the wounds of war. All instruments and accessories are provided free of charge to the veterans in the program, so please consider donating to support our mission to put music in the hands of our heroes. www.guitarsforvets. All right.
Thomas, you are so good.
You got that FM voice, you know.
It must be the radio DJ from all those years ago.
Hey, Charlie, I just wanted to say you're a sponsor for SIT Strings.
SIT Strings, yes.
They're out. Do you know where they're out of?
Ohio.
Akron, yeah, my adopted hometown.
They're great. They're a great company, man. Great people.
I haven't used their guitar strings. I got to do that.
I love their bass strings because I find that they're alive, that they're bright, but they're not thin. Because I'm a jazz guy, so I like warmth. I'm kind of go for a warmth feel. You know, even when I'm playing like more rock stuff, I'm more of a round, warm kind of player. and the stuff is great. And
Yeah, the SIT is an acronym. It's supposed to be stay in tune is kind of what the phrase
Yeah.
is that they got
Yeah.
SIT from. But
Yeah,
yeah, they're supposed to be really good
they're
strings.
just good people. Just I'm lucky that all my endorsees, well, that's why I stay with them, but they're just really nice people. You know,
Good.
the guys at Lakeland, you know, Yamaha, they're all just good people, and they make great gear. You know,
All right, guys.
like I said, I don't have a lot of gear, so whatever I have, it's got to work.
Well, listen, that brings us pretty much to the conclusion of this G4V Learning Center live event featuring our.
I want to go practice now.
Yeah, exactly. Charley Sabatino, dude, thank you.
Yeah,
I-
Charlie,
I-
thank
I
you
should
very
be
much.
I should be thanking each and every one of you. I'm the one should be thanking you. This is more of a privilege for me than you can believe.
We'll have to do this
all
again.
heroes.
Yeah, I think you're doing it right now. So thanks.
We'll have you back for sure. All right, folks. Well, with that said, I'm Tom Lamog, Guitars for Vets and Cav Arts, the Challenge America Veteran Arts Community. Thank you again for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks all. Have a
Thanks,
good night.
everyone. Good night.